Well then, it's time.
All right, we're just a few days removed from Father's Day, right, folks? Come on now. It is Father's Day. However, I want you guys to think through the men in your life, specifically the fathers, obviously, that are going through stuff that they don't talk about, right? Being a father myself, being a man myself, and dealing with money, not only my experience personally, but just dealing with clients and everyone else, we go through a lot that we don't talk about, right? We probably went through Father's Day highlighted with, fun family stuff, toys, gifts, grilling, who knows? But in the background, there's always that feeling of, am I doing enough? Am I providing enough? Are we going to have enough money to get even through the summer? Is my business failing? Am I not failing? Are my kids going to grow up to be like me, not be like me, be like my father? Somewhere in those realms, all those things are coming into play. And then you throw what's going on in society. How do I protect them? How do we know what's going to happen down the road? And every one of those things are hitting every father that I've ever known. Now, there's outliers. There's shitty fathers out there, don't get me wrong. But there are those ones that are holding that, and it's very heavy to them, and they don't know what to do, who to talk to, or where to go. Now, I'm very lucky personally, everyone, that I have a lot of connections with either my friends or family members or colleagues, so that way we can talk about something like that. And I'm a little more outgoing than others. But those that are not, they're in your lives right now. They're not the ones listening to this podcast right now. You are. And we want to be able to take today to kind of get you into their mindset of where they're at, what they're going through, and why it's such an important time around Father's Day, because it's really the only time that it's highlighted around men and around fathers of what's going on around them. So I brought on Ashley, not because she's a man, because she is not. Obviously, we all know this. I got her. Because she deals with couples. She deals with the situation from the background, from her therapist background. And
Sorry,
I
I was not.
and I'm so glad I
not
did.
expecting you to say that.
So we definitely wanted to bring her on and get her background, also with what I'm going to say. So as we dive into this topic, everybody, the intersection between masculinity, money, and mental health, in my opinion, are one and the same, sadly. Whether it's because we were raised in our generation, as we were joking off camera, of being so old at 40, is, dust it off, just work harder, and it'll all work out for yourself, right? Don't talk about your emotions. Don't do any of that as a man in the masculinity side of things. Then we've also been preached our entire careers and lives that remove your emotions from money decisions. Well, that's funny. We're humans. That's really tough to do. And then it leads us to the mental health. All of those things are intertwined. And my first question that I posed to you, Ashley, after that long intro, of course, is how often have you seen this come through without a man or father, someone actually saying something to you?
All the time. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of when I'm sitting across, so I used to be physically in an office. Now it's virtual. So when I say sitting across from them, albeit virtually, or when it was in person, sometimes you can just tell that they're carrying something that they maybe it's not entirely conscious to them, but you can just tell. And I want to name something too that I think is important. And I hope I don't get too much flack for it. I hope the haters don't come after me for saying this, but never has there ever been a harder time to be a father. And I say that because everything that you just talked about in terms of what is masculinity, like what does that mean? What does that mean to me? What does that mean, from a societal, kind of place? Like I think I see a lot of men struggling just with that to some varying degree. But then there's also this other side of, okay, I'm called to be a leader. I'm called to provide for the family. I have to be quote unquote strong, but then I also need to be a good dad, and I need to be loving and caring and and nurturing. And so I think it's really hard on being a father. I'll say a good father, because they're balancing, like, how do I show up and lead and be a strong, man and what that means and what's asked of me, but then how do I also be loving and caring and nurturing and, show up for my kids and kiss their boo-boos, and try to help them cultivate their own feelings. So there's this pendulum swing, right, that we see a lot of fathers, that are going through. And so which is why I say never has there ever been a harder time to be a dad than where we are right now.
And I feel that a lot, like personally. So
Yeah.
obviously, I played collegiate football, and I have this higher standard always across the board. And I reflect on it sometimes, like, am I being too hard on them? But then, like, I'm there at every practice, I'm at every game. We camp every weekend together. Like, I'm always there, and I still feel that pull of the oh, what's the term everyone's talking about nowadays? But anyways, like, I feel the pull of, like, am I supposed to be the man and lead them and not show emotion, or am I supposed to show them how to feel and talk about their emotions? And it's always this, like, back and forth and back and forth. And I think it's because society's figuring out that it's both, right?
Right.
There are clear times that you as a father need to do things that the mother won't want to do, right?
Right.
And my wife Michelle and I go through this all the time. Last summer, our oldest was going through this, and it's probably emotional change, but was going through this thing of, like, he couldn't push past a certain degree of intensity when it came to his sports or his career or whatever he was trying to work on, right? And I was raised in a way of, you have to push through that. The only way to push through that is to get all the way to that point and then keep going.
Right.
And so one weekend I said, babe, I'm taking the boys over to the field. We're going to run sprints and stairs and all of that, and I'm going to break them. Like, I'm going to break them down. They're going to cry, and we're going to get through it. She's like, I can't do that. Like, I can't be involved. I don't want to see my babies cry. I don't want to be doing that. I didn't have that feeling. My feeling was, I have this duty to make sure that I can get them to a degree of which they can perform themselves, right? Ipso facto, they ran, they cried, and a week later they asked, Dad, are we going to do that again? Because it broke them to a level that they didn't know they could get through. And that's all that mental side. So I say that because, like, I go through it still myself of, there are things that we need to be doing as men and fathers, just ingrained in us, but also the flip side, the emotional side. And it's just so difficult to do, say, talk, move, because you get flack one way or another. And I'm sure we'll get flack for this conversation too. I just did a Threads post about how I don't think you should baby kids when they fall down at practice or in training or in games. They need to get back up and not become quitters or complainers. And man, you should you should see the comments out of the woodworks about, that's that male masculinity, that's all that. And I'm like, that's just my mindset, and that's where I'm at. So I definitely understand and hear you on, it's got to be the hardest time to be a father at this time.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that I would also say for those that are, excuse me, wanting to get on and be the keyboard warriors right now that are listening, like, I would also say the same thing about being a mother, but we're not talking about mothers today. We're talking about fathers. And so I just want to be clear that being a parent in general, it is incredibly difficult. But we're talking about dads today, and dads, fathers, they need their own time. They need their own dedicated airspace. And so being a father is hard, balancing what, we think we should be, what our previous parents, generations have told us what we should be, what society tells us, what our spouse tells us we should be. I give Clayton a lot of feedback. I give him a lot of feedback. I'm not saying that it's all good feedback, but there's a lot of feedback that's given. And it's hard to take all of that in, synthesize it, and then figure out, okay, but who do I want to be as a dad? How do I want to show up in this world and with my family?
And I'll say this, probably for both of us, though. Fathers, you do need to be present. You do need to be involved. You do need to be giving your effort, because at the end of the day, the effort, whether you're doing it right, wrong, or indifferent, your effort of just being there is doing way more than not being there. My father wasn't around. I luckily enough had my grandfather and other, I guess, my friends' dads around to, like, get some of that. But not having you around is worse than having you around and trying to figure it out, because we're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I would agree.
When it comes to the money conversations, right, that you sit down with couples, I would assume probably the man feels like more dominant in the conversations and talks about the money the most and feels like wants to be the most organized, quote unquote, right? But can you see through that? Is it more of a facade, or do they really feel like they have their shit together?
Here's what I would say. I actually see where, by and large, men, if we're talking about a heterosexual couple here, men are have more opinions, have better information, they're more knowledgeable around more of like the long-term, bigger picture aspect of a couple's financial life. Women tend to do more of the day-to-day. They know more about what do kids' clothes cost, what are we spending on back to school shopping, like groceries, things like that. So it's not a matter of seeing through it. I think when we're talking, at least from a couple's standpoint, men are going to chime in and be more knowledgeable and assert more like opinions when we're talking about like longer term or bigger picture, type of financial decision making. And so, that is great. That is fantastic. But sometimes it comes at a cost of creating conflict in the couple system, and we don't have to get into all of that. I do see though where maybe a little bit more to your point, where I think that there is I think it's outwardly spoken. I think it's explicitly spoken, but spoken, unspoken message that men should know about money management and how to take care of the family, not just from earning income and providing that way, but also how to manage it. And so there are men where maybe they don't have that level of knowledge, financial literacy, experience, like practice. There is a little bit more of a sometimes outward like putting on. And I, you know, imagine that for many of them, some of them I actually know because we'll go there in conversation, there can be shame associated with not knowing. And so I think that for, certain groups of couples where the male is more of that longer term CFO type of like partner, like there's an expectation, and maybe they've been taught, maybe they're just interested in it and they've been able to fill that role or gap. But then there is also another group of men where they still feel that expectation. They still feel that sense of duty, like responsibility, but maybe they just don't have the knowledge or care. Maybe they don't give any flying flips about like knowing all of this, but they feel like they should. And then there's shame associated with not knowing.
And I think I would say on top of that shame is not knowing, but also not wanting to ask, right?
Yeah.
Inherently, men don't like to ask for instructions. We'll just figure it out.
I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there.
Right.
I'm a little triggered with my own personal stuff. I'm not going to go there, but yes.
But it's true. I it's just true. Okay. The whole stereotypical thing. No, it's a fact. Like it's a fact. Men, and inherently we don't want to ask. And this is where I believe the good old boys club thing comes into the financial industry in itself. I truly believe historically men don't ask. So if their friends involved or someone else's friends involved, it kind of just naturally happens, right? And they just say, oh, they're taking care of me, and I don't really know because they don't want to ask questions, which is, in my opinion, very dangerous, because you've got one demographic, right? The white males who are, this is what they are. They're going to continue to rise and cream to the crop type situation. That's where a lot of our money is in the country. So be it. But then you've got the others who aren't the alpha male, who don't have those networks. You've got anyone who is of color also doesn't have those networks, but now they don't ask the question. Majority of them, they're not going to go ask and figure it out. They're just going to try to figure it out. And there's one thing I know, that the money game, this money financial services industry, you can't just figure out. It is something that you have to take time to research, learn, and ask questions, because there's too much movement. So for those listening that haven't asked the question, or your spouse or someone is a father that doesn't ask questions, have them reach out, or at least start to research a little bit, because there's so much detrimental things that happen when you aren't, and you're afraid and you feel shameful of asking. But we get into this next segment, before we get down to your expert lens at how you believe someone can help and get out of their situation, is we get to this noise versus truth. So I'm going to say some noises and some truths, and I just want your off the cuff response to them.
Okay.
First one: men are naturally less open about feelings. It's just how they're wired.
That is one of my favorites, and favorite in a way that it is like just kind of a pet peeve. I will, yeah, I will say that. So let's talk. So I hear some version of that. Men are less open about feelings, or men don't talk about feelings, or men don't feel. I can't tell you how many men that I've heard that will say, like, yeah, well, I don't really have feelings, like, or that doesn't happen. And they're actually not wired that way. Actually, it's really the opposite. But they've been preconditioned from, culturally, but also like from an evolutionary standpoint too. Like I get it. Like it has evolved in such a way that how men deal with feelings is different. And some of that has served them very well from a survival standpoint, but we're in modern day history now. Like we don't need you to go out and hunt and bring back, a mammoth so that we can survive the winter. Like we don't need we don't need that. But we do need connection, and men need it just as much as women do. We need that from a human survival standpoint. And so men are wired to be able to engage with their feelings, but they just they don't. There's a lot of roadblocks, is what I would say. A lot of breaks, a lot of roadblocks there. So that's definitely noise. I'm hoping for those that are listening, maybe there's some permission given to engage a little bit more on that emotional side.
Yeah. In some research that this is the truth part, little facts of it. Research that we saw from Equimundo, geez, well, good Lord, research topics, can't talk, not a scientist. Shows that men experiencing economic insecurity are 16.3 times more likely to report suicidal ideology than women, flat out. So it's not necessarily based upon biology, but when the economy shifts and there's this economic pressure, men don't feel the pressure per se. They feel the personal failure. And I think that comes back to the shame. That comes back to going out on a hunt and not coming back with a mammoth. And it's now translated to modern day a little bit. Next one, financial therapy, which obviously this is going to light up to you. Financial therapy is for people with serious problems, not normal stress.
Normal is just a setting on the dryer. We all experience, stress is stress. And so how we define that, I think is important. And if you are defining your stress, if you're dismissing it, then, well, we should pay attention to that. And I would say financial therapy is not just for people with serious problems. Like there is, and we've talked about this before on different episodes, like financial therapy is great for people to, if they're wanting to be proactive about things, as a way, if something is going good and they want to be, a business is going well, we've reached a certain level because of, the business success. And like our family has never been in this position before. Neither have each of our parents. So now we're starting to generate, some cash, some, liquidity here. And like, what do we do? Like, this is a good stress. Let's reach out. Let's, as you were saying, like, let's talk to somebody like about this. Like, would you define like your business doing well as a serious problem? Probably not. Probably not, but that is a reason to reach out and talk about what is that like to be, maybe that first generation that is, now moving into like upper middle class. Like, that's going to have you're going to have some feelings. Might be weird at family gatherings, like when you've got a nice house, excuse me, you've got these things, and like now it's weird showing up at the family reunion. You're pulling up in the Lincoln Navigator, and I don't know, I'm just making things up here, or maybe another luxury like her. Like it could be weird. Like that's important to talk about as a couple. So it doesn't have to be like a serious problem, like where there's gambling addiction, or like just overspending, compulsive like spending, or we're on the brink of divorce. Like here, like we can go and talk about normal stresses, and that can be equally as helpful and productive.
Well, I'm going to go a different direction because you just ran right over to the next one
My
without even
bad.
knowing what the next topic was, and that was
My
the first
bad.
gen wealth builders. Oh, it's like the second sense of
I'm
yours.
so
I want
rude.
to
I'm
hit.
so rude. I'm so sorry. I'm
Yeah,
so
no, you're good.
rude.
I want to hit back upon what you had said of going to therapy not just because you need it, but like get ahead and those types of things. I th- I want to ask this: what is the biggest misnomer now between financial therapy and then like me going in for just regular therapy? Because I feel as if there's a disconnect going on where people think it's only going to be like the lay down on the couch type as opposed to like the financial therapy side. And and if people understood, I think there would be a lot more for the financial therapy side because there are things that they need to just speak about and get off their chest. It might lead to to more of the personal therapist side of things, but I think that other side happens. So what's the biggest misnomer and connection difference between those?
Yeah, well, it's not whether you lay on a couch or not and talk. So let me just be clear. Like, at least for when I'm meeting with people, you can always lay on your own couch. Or I would actually tell clients that, like, hey, if you feel like you need to lay on the couch to have this conversation, like, by all means, please do so. So, like, when we talk about just, kind of financial therapy, I think like the important thing to understand here is when we're making financial decisions, when we are engaging with money, like our relationship with money, like there is an element here, like there is an aspect that it is part technical, like part numbers, but also part emotional as well. There's, plenty of research out there. The late great Dr. Daniel Kahneman, that emotional decisions, like financial decisions are 80% emotional. Like, that's not the 20% is numbers, right? So, like going and talking, like just understanding that, like when I go to make a financial decision, that there are emotions or other psychological like factors at play here, like knowing that and going, like that might be worth talking about. That is different than just I need like traditional therapy. Like we think about traditional therapy as I need healing. I need, I need to be healed or find some kind of healing from something that's like maladaptive, and that's not really the case like with financial therapy. It's really the awareness and recognition that the way in which I've come to think, feel, and do money, it is part numbers and it is also part emotional or psychological. And if I can understand where and how that intersects with how I make decisions, guess what? My decisions are ultimately going to be better.
Absolutely. Next segment, your expert lens. This is all you and how you're going to tell us how to be better in our lives, basically. That being said, what let's kick this off with what are some steps or some avenues for either those fathers that are listening going, oh, I need to improve, or those that are listening that they want to broach that conversation with that father in their life.
Okay, so let's talk about just if you're listening and you are a father first, because I think it's different. That is definitely a little different. Like, first and foremost, like awareness, recognition, coming off of autopilot, being aware of like, like I might have some stuff here around like what it means to be a man in my family, what it means from a place of masculinity, how I need to be the breadwinner, how I need to run the family like household from a financial management. Like, like I might have some stuff there. So like there's an awareness piece of like maybe I've got some thoughts and feelings that are not serving me well. And so like first and foremost, can we just name that? Can we just like come off of autopilot? Can we bring in some awareness and just name like maybe there's something there? That's step one. And that's step one of any like really like behavior change is when we talk about awareness. From there, then it's, I talked a little bit about, is this serving me well? So like, is this way in which I'm thinking, feeling, or doing, is it serving me well? Is it helpful or is it harmful? Can we put if we do the flow chart, my famous flow chart of do you need new shoes? Mine always goes to yes, but sometimes other people's no. No, I don't need new shoes. Like, is this a financial behavior that is helping me or is it hurting me? And, 51% of the time here. And if it's, hey, it's actually like not helping me. Okay, then what do I need to do about it? What are my options for then being able to navigate that, to work through it, to process it? And so this is where, like, hey, some research is involved. Call your financial planner, call Stoy, right? Or maybe I need to talk to a financial therapist about this. But I think if we can, kind of break this down into like almost like a flow chart, I find that that's really helpful from a decision making, framework place for a lot of men. So that's for them. If you're a listener and you're like, ooh, like this sounds really helpful, please do not employ that framework with the male in your life, and go, okay, are you aware? Yes or no? Like, no, you're not aware. Yes, you are aware. Here's how you're going to do this. Like, please don't approach the conversation like that. It's likely not going to go well. It's likely not going to go well. But if there is, if there is a desire to understand, come at the conversation from a place of curiosity. Don't come at it from a place of like, babe, I'm really concerned about you. And like, you just seem to be like kind of struggling. And here, let me tell you all of the things that I think that you should do. That approach, while it might be, the intention is to be helpful, like, again, it's not going to get you the result that you want. And not that this is about getting the result that you want, but if you approach the conversation from a place of, I want to learn more and understand more, like, hey, babe, like, you're the breadwinner in our family. What is that like for you? Do you ever feel like there's a lot of pressure there? Like, do you have friends that talk about this? So sometimes what's really helpful is if you have a male in your life, and I'm talking mostly here, within couples. So I'm just using that as an example, but it can be applied to like if you have a brother, if you have a father or a close friend, but asking them if, do you have friends or other guys in your life that feel pressure to be a breadwinner? It's going to give you some insight, and it's going to be easier because then they can talk about other people, not necessarily themselves. However, more than likely, if they're giving you and kind of going down that like path of like, oh yeah, like Stoy, like, man, he tells me all the time that he feels like so much pressure to like keep things afloat and like keep the business running. Like, he's just under so much stress, and like, man, like, that's going to tell you that he's paying attention, but also then it gives you a really natural entry to like, well, do you ever feel that way? Is that something that you ever feel? So you get them to kind of identify with other people first, and then you can come and say like, hey, is that something that you also struggle with? But again, it's got to be from a place of like just genuine curiosity, not trying to, hey, let me learn all about this and then tell you that you should go and fix it. That can come later. Just try to learn about your partner or this person, this father in your life.
And now for the advisors that are listening, right? You work with a lot of advisors.
Yeah.
How the hell do they broach this conversation? And let me probably preface this. There are different types of advisors out there. There are ones that, like me, who this is how we operate. But there's probably, 60, 70 other percent that aren't like this. How are they now taking these new conversations? Because this is kind of newer in our industry to talk about these things. What are some steps that they need to take when they can recognize some of these issues or patterns in their own clients?
Yeah, I think there's a few different thoughts that come to mind here. Like, one is I might use a similar approach to what I just shared. Come at it from a place of curiosity. Ask them if are there other people like in their lives. Advisors could also talk about maybe other experiences of their clients, obviously keeping names, confidentiality, but like, yeah, like I've got another client, he's a business owner, and man, he just feels all this like stress and like pressure. Sometimes talking about like another client and what they're going through will land on the client in front of you just in a way that they might feel like, oh yeah, like this resonates for me. Like we're really geared towards story, and connecting through story. And when we can share other people's story, or our own story, sometimes I will see that clients are like, oh yeah, you know what? I actually like, yeah, that's actually true for me too. Right. Like it just helps bring, you know, thoughts, feelings, experiences, emotions, like connect to the surface there through story. So, you know, use story through other clients, become curious, share your own if any of that resonates with you. Like sometimes a little bit of self disclosure can be helpful.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap this up, I'm gonna take the step of calling out the men. Men, listen, okay? Just listen up real quick. The most dangerous financial decisions and issues in your life are not because you are ignorant or you don't know what you're doing or any of that. It comes from that feeling of being too proud, that shamefulness, that hey, I'm not going to ask anybody situation. I want you to cut that shit out now. I need you to go find that friend, that advisor, your wife, someone, and start the process of opening up. You don't have to give every emotion possible under the sun, but you can at least start with a story of someone that you know and at least say, hey, I feel somewhere along those lines. Be present, be okay with opening up a little bit. And I will promise you that will lead to greater, whatever success definition you have in your life, will lead you down that path. Okay. I know it's blunt. I know it's a hard truth and it's coming at you hard, but you need to listen. You need to take those steps forward to better yourself, not only for yourself, but for your kids and everything in the future. Ashley, I appreciate your time. Always appreciate your time. I'm glad that you were able to come on and talk to our men from a different perspective, and we could go back and forth with that. So without further ado, until next time, everybody, listen up, listen to Ashley, follow what she's doing. And if you're afraid to talk to anyone, I'm here for you as well.
The preceding program was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.